And good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Washtenaw County Road Commission for our November 3rd virtual board meeting. Before we start the meeting, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Number one of which, if you would like to make public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand virtually by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touchtone phone, you can virtually raise your hand by dialing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. The chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their computers or smartphone. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our IT manager will help you troubleshoot. We are one technical support person down today. Our usual meeting host is working the polls in her area to vote. So the technical support, while it's available, will take potentially a couple of seconds longer to be covered. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is posted on wcroads.org, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer. I will now call the meeting to order, and I'll read the roll call for attendance. Currently speaking is the chairman. My name is Doug Fuller. With us is Vice Chair Barb Fuller. Barb, you there?
Barb Fuller, present, participating virtually from Sharon Township in Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Thank you, Barb. Commissioner Rod Green.
Good afternoon. I'm Roderick Green. I'm present. I am participating virtually from Superior Township, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Gloria Yamas. Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
I'm Joanne McCullum, present. I am remote virtually from Ypsilanti Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Thank you, Joanne. Cheryl Siddell is the managing director. Cheryl.
I'm here.
County Highway Engineer Matt McDonnell.
Present.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon.
Present, Mr. Chair.
And Director of Finance and IT Mr. Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you. It is our standard practice to begin our board meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Since we are hosting this meeting virtually today, instead we will start this meeting with a moment of silence. Today's moment of silence is specifically to honor road workers across the country who put their lives on the line every day to serve the public. We'd ask that you please slow down in work zones and give these amazing people room to work. Our thoughts are with those who have recently been injured or killed while doing their important work along the roadways. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. At this point, I'd like to have a motion on the agenda, please.
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Barb Fuller, I need your vote.
Yes.
Rod Green,
Yes.
Gloria is not with us. Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes. We have an agenda, and I thank you. Next on that agenda is the acceptance of, we have two sets of minutes to consider today. First of which will be the minutes of the October the 20th regular board meeting. Do we have any comments or suggestions or corrections to those minutes?
I have none.
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 Have none on as well. Could I have a motion?
Mr.
I
Chairman,
mo-
acceptance of the board meeting minutes of October 20th, 2020 as presented.
Support.
Thank you, Rod and Barb. Barb, your vote, please.
Yes.
Rod, your vote, please.
Yes.
Joanne
Yes.
and Doug votes yes as well. Those minutes have been approved as presented.
Mr. Chairman, we have been joined by Commissioner Yamas.
Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties. My computer has restarted 20 times for the last hour.
Oh my.
So it's finally on its last restart. So I hope it doesn't shut down on me. So I just will let you know I'm having technical problems.
Okay, good. Would you like to vote on the minutes?
Yes, I vote yes on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Moving on to the minutes of the working session of October the 20th. Could I have a motion on those minutes, please?
I motion to accept the working session minutes of October 20th, 2020.
Support.
Been moved and supported. And I'd like to give everyone an opportunity to make any comments about additions, deletions, something we missed. Are there any suggestions?
I have none.
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 Thank you. Then in which case we will vote. Barb,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Gloria,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
and Doug, yes. Thank you. Minutes have been approved. We come now to public comment. And officially, if you would like to make a public comment, please virtually raise your hand at this time. I'm going to read the directions again. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raised Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can virtually raise your hand by dialing *9. The meeting host will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. The host, will announce your username or last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. As with all of our meetings, while this is a time to receive comments from the public, this is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allocated 3 minutes to address the board. Chris, do we have anyone that has raised their hand?
None at this time, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to written communications, which appears in your board packet on pages 17 and 18. Are there members of the board that would like to comment on any of the written communications?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to note that I appreciate the modification, the innovation in the presentation of the written communications. It's very concise. I appreciate that it's been separated by category and understand that additional detail, if desired, is available.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else like to comment?
Can only echo what Commissioner Fuller has said.
as
Thank
well.
you.
Make it easier.
Thank you.
Since we've not had any public comment, we'll move on to new business. And I'd like to have a motion on the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the consent agenda for items 1 through 5 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We'll move on to voting. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Rod Green,
Yes.
Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Joanne McCullum,
yes,
and Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Now we have an action item for involves a land acquisition for project. And it probably appears, there we go. I was looking at it on page 48. It also appears elsewhere on page 22 and is entitled Dennison Road Bridge Replacement Project, Parcel 3 Right-of-Way Acquisition. There is a proposed motion, and certainly we can modify it if we find it necessary. I'm looking actually to have someone make a motion concerning this, and then we can discuss it if we need to.
I move that upon the recommendation of the County Highway Engineer, Director of Engineering, and concurrence of the Managing Director, the board hereby approves the acquisition of a 0.051 acre or 2,224 square foot public road easement and a 0.059 acre or 2,565 square foot grading permit, both more particularly described in Exhibit A, from the title owner Mitzi Ratliff upon a parcel of property commonly known as 1399 Moorville Road, York Township, Michigan, with a corresponding tax parcel number of S-19-28-362-010 in the amount of $7,500, and further directs the chair and managing director to execute the good faith offer of just compensation as presented.
Thank you, Barb. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that the amount was increased because of her loss of access to the Saline River. Was that one of the reasons, as I understand it?
That's what was in the write-up.
Okay, all righty. So she's physically unable to access the Saline River, or it's just kind of diminished?
I believe that it's diminished. That is one of the justifications she was using in her counter offer from, we had the original offer on our part was a little over $4,500.
Right.
And she countered with 7,500, stating access to the Saline River. I can certainly be happy to have Kurt give you greater detail if you're interested in that.
No, that's fine. I think it's a reasonable counter offer.
Anyone else like to comment? I concur with the comment that Cheryl brought up, and the write-up on page 48, or excuse me, 49 and 50 goes into that in great detail. So if we're ready to vote, I will call the question. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCullum,
yes,
and Commissioner Fuller also votes yes. And I thank you all for that. And next on the agenda, reports. Do we have a county commissioner with us that would like to comment?
We do not.
Okay, hearing none. I suspect they might be busy with the election chores. We'll start with road commissioners then. Barb Fuller.
I have to report that on October 27th, I attended the virtual Earhart Road Natural Beauty Road public hearing via Zoom. And I also want to note that at the request of the chair, I did indeed drive that section of road and have looked at it firsthand.
Thank you, Barb.
That is all.
Commissioner Green, anything you'd like to report on?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Gloria?
So the only thing I do have to report is I did drive the road that Commissioner Barb Fuller spoke about. I've driven it many times and it is just as beautiful as it has before. So I did do that.
Question, since both of you drove the road, did it happen to be at a time of day when the students from that school on Joy Road were excusing themselves, or their parents were, rather?
No.
Okay. Anyway, I thank you for reviewing that visually in person.
Do we know how many students are enrolled at that school?
I don't. Managing Director Cheryl, do you have any idea at all, or I'm sure that's information we could probably get.
I do not know offhand. I don't know if Brent or Matt does, but certainly if that's important, we can try to contact the school and find out the number that are enrolled.
Say it's probably under 200.
Under 200, okay. Matt, that school goes up through what grade level? Do you remember?
I believe at 8th grade.
I think I remember that too, but okay. So at that point, they could maintain the same religious affiliation and go further down the road in question, actually, because doesn't that high school start at grade 9?
Gabriel Richard is 9 through 12, and yes,
Yeah.
they are affiliated at some level.
Okay.
Would that be the Montessori school?
No, it's a Roman Catholic school. Is run by the sisters that have all that entire complex up there on Joy Road.
Okay.
Yeah, the
I
name of
believe-
the school is Spiritus Sanctus.
Spiritus Sanctus. correct.
Thank you. I couldn't remember
Thank
that. Report from Joanne. I know one meeting you went to yesterday because I was with you.
Yes, on November, no, I'm sorry. Sometime in October, I watched 2 YouTube videos on what a gas inspection station is. Yeah, they're very good. It is a fancy term for what the industry calls a pig catching station. It
Actually,
improves.
there's some more interesting names than that, but that's fine.
It improves efficiency of flow in the pipeline and provide insights as to when heavy maintenance activities need to be scheduled. And I want to thank Mark McCullough for providing those videos for me. And on October 27th, I attended the public hearing of the Earhart Road Natural Beauty Road petition. And there were a lot of good questions from the public, and they were all answered. And on October 28th and the 29th, I attended the Transportation Asset Management Conference. And some of the topics, one was adapting to a digital environment and paving to win. And the other things that they talked about were climate resilience and flooding mitigation in Southeast Michigan. And they also talked about their equipment, energy absorbing layer for the roads and things like that. Very interesting. I also, my last thing, I attended the Southeast Road Commission, and they talked about emergency operations and how to acquire more funds for emergencies, and also revising the code of conduct, future discussions on that. So that's all I have.
I was pleased to see you at the council meeting. For those, I guess the two of you that attended the public hearing on the Natural Beauty Road, brief characterization, were most of the people there in favor of that designation or opposed, or did you get a feel for that?
Most people wanted to know what it was. They felt, it sounds like from their comments, that they felt there was a more complex reason for petitioning the road to be natural beauty. Like, is it going to lower the speed limit? Will I be able to make some changes for my driveway? Or there's one person that owned a business there. So all of those were answered. It sounded like, you know, since nothing is going to happen except for a sign, that people were satisfied with that. And so Barb, you can talk about what you heard.
Excuse me. The only thing I would add is I think it was pretty close to the final comment was made by someone who actually had circulated the petition. And she expressed that the only reason she did it was to recognize the road is beautiful. She claimed not to have any other agenda other than it's a beautiful road. She'd like the designation. She wasn't trying to do anything to impede travel on the road or protect anything else. So I would echo Joanne's remarks that there seems to be some, I won't actually call that misunderstanding, but there's a mythology around what happens when a road is designated a natural beauty road. And there were questions that were very pointed that clarified that, as Joanne said. So it sounds like the people love the road. They'd like their signs that say we love our road and think it's beautiful. Don't you too? And that was the end of it. And once people were reassured that there was nothing drastic that would change with respect to the maintenance of the road, it all just kind of settled down. And I don't have any problem going forward with supporting the petitioners.
Thank you. The Southeast Council meeting that Joanne and I attended yesterday actually was fairly factual because we're not meeting in person. There seems to be a great deal more. Let me rephrase that. There is not the same degree of comments that repeat themselves endlessly. It seems like the meetings are more useful from that standpoint. There was, as there usually are, or usually is, a lot of interest in what's going on in the legislature. Both the director of the CRA and the deputy director were both there and did a fine job of telling us what was going on and to the best of their belief why some of those things are going on. So, and we reviewed a little bit of future planning that goes into the priorities of the CRA, and they will be reporting back in writing to all of us. So I thought it was a fairly useful meeting. I had to leave before the end of it, but and the other thing that I would say, since it was Joanne's first meeting, since the meetings became virtual, all of a sudden we don't any longer have people from MDOT who used to attend. We used to also, at probably half of the meetings, we had somebody there from Eagle, the environmental people from the state. They have not been coming recently, and I'm not sure what all that's about, but we don't have that participation. So, with that, we'll move along to
Mr.
the
Chairman?
managing director. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
go ahead,
Could
Joanne.
I just add, I forgot something that I wanted
Please.
to report on. Yeah. On October 28th, also, I attended the Stabler Farm County Park public input session. And that was very interesting. The comments, people had very good comments on the design. They had 3 different designs, an A, B, and C. And all of them were related to making the place more historical and usable for like a playground, a children's garden, even animals, cows, pasture for cows and things like that. So people were able to vote on their smartphones, like a survey on what they liked and didn't like. So I thought that was pretty good. Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, how long was the Southeast Council meeting?
As I said, I didn't stay till the end. I stayed 2 hours. Joanne, what time did they break up?
It went from 9:30 to 12:30, right?
Wow.
I think it was 12:30.
That was about
12:30?
12:30.
Okay. I just want to emphasize again, there's a data cap issue involved in virtual meetings. So people who otherwise might be interested in attending just can't afford to spend 3 hours at a meeting like that, or YouTube video, and all of those things have their limitations.
Good point. And thank you for bringing it up again, because you've mentioned that before. And of course, since I don't live
Once or
well,
twice.
no, very seriously, I don't think about that, because at home I can sit there and watch YouTubes on how they build roads. In the last one I did was in India, and so I
Yeah,
spent.
it's the length that's involved.
Well,
it's
no,
the
I
length,
understand,
right.
and I spent 3 hours on Sunday watching YouTube videos about asphalt plants in India.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't have time limitations based on available space to watch things like that. So
Right.
Is that typically how long they are? I don't
Oh,
know.
they
if I
used to
picked-
be all day. When we used to go, it was all day.
Yeah, in-person meetings would be from like about 9:30 to, there would be a lunch and there'd be an afternoon, a brief presentation. So we would usually be getting done around 2 o'clock maybe.
Okay.
yeah. So if the meeting was in Coldwater, you had an hour or so to drive to Coldwater to be there by 9 or 9:30, and then you got home at somewhere between 3 and 4. Anyway,
But they're our peers, and so they've been very useful meetings, because when different, topics come up, it's always good to hear what our peers, I know that no matter what our role is, whether it's my role, Jim, Dan, Matt, all of us reach out to our peers, and we normally start with others that are within the Southeast Council and our surrounding neighbors as we're, investigating whatever the topic might be. So it's good to have those relationships.
certainly is. Moving along, Cheryl.
All right. Well, the staff report is in your board packet. I believe it starts on page 54. Be happy to entertain any questions on that. I did send out the tree policy on Friday, the draft tree policy, to the county board and several of the department heads or elected officials, Evan Pratt, Coy Vaughn, Greg Dill. As well. Not surprisingly, haven't heard anything. Didn't really expect to hear anything from them immediately. We are also intending to send that out to township officials, but we will probably be waiting until next week to do that, knowing that township officials will potentially, if they're new, would be taking office towards the end of November. So they we want to make sure that we reach out to the new officials in addition to those that are reelected. Since it'll be during the public comment period for that. Staff does continue to work on our preparedness plan and to keep that up to date. MIOSHA has issued new rules. We've gotten some additional guidance from Akrissa, who's been incredibly helpful throughout this entire pandemic. So we made some updates to the plan last week based on some additional information we just received. We'll be making further updates and staying on top of all of that. One of the more significant increases changes right now has been to the health screening. We've been doing that for quite some time, but we hadn't necessarily been keeping records of that. So Nicole Peterson's been heading up that effort, depending on what department you're assigned to. Some people are filling out paper forms, others are using an app that's on their phone or on their computer in order to be able to do the health screening and for us to be able to have record keeping associated with that. So we continue to stay vigilant as to changes that are coming with the plan. The last thing that I wanted to report on before I turned it over to the directors was we do have Brent with us today. And at the end of last week, we were notified that we were successful on a couple of safety grants. So I thought that it might be fun for Brent to share the 2 grants that we did receive and just a brief description of what those specific projects will be in the future. So if I may, I don't know, Matt, if you want to kick it off or you want me to hand it right over to Brent.
Brent, take it away.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'm going to try and share my screen. I do have a document that I can show. Let me know if you can see that document.
I see Dexter Pinckney Road, Island Lake Road to North County line.
Yeah. So that's one of the locations that was selected. So you can see it highlighted in yellow. That's the segment that we applied for the safety grant. We applied for centerline rumble strips, pavement markings, curb delineation and sign upgrades, a box span signal at North Territorial and Dexter Pinckney, and spot drainage improvements. A box span signal, currently it's a diagonal span, so it goes from one quadrant, basically kitty corner, across the intersection to the other quadrant. A box span will form a box where you'll have a signal and or a pole in each quadrant of the intersection. It allows so that we can raise that signal to a height to include left turn protection, like the flashing yellow traffic signals, and that so that we can get those signals up out of the way of trucks and what have you. So that one, it's about $660,000. It is a 90% federally funded project and 10% local match. We also did receive $66,000 of preliminary engineering, which is also split 50-50 between us and federal dollars.
So
Wait,
90,
us and who?
So it's federally, federal funds also pay for our design, 50% of our design, up to 10% of our award. So $66,000 So they'll pay 33,000 and the rest, the 33,000 will be paid by us.
Which is
Before we
unusual.
move away,
We do not frequently have our design that is paid for with federal dollars. So they will match us dollar for dollar up to basically 66,000 total, or 33,000 out of pocket for us.
Right.
That
Brett,
essentially just reimburses our staff time that's already budgeted for. So it's a great program.
Correct. Yep.
I agree. Before you know, back,
Okay.
thank you. I want to ask a question about the intersection of Dexter, Pinckney, and McGregor. What's the plan over the next 10 years to improve the safety at that intersection?
So this grant would also allow us to look at other options. And that is one location that we've looked at to put an overhead flashing beacon. So that's something that we can incorporate with this funding as well. We haven't looked at, it doesn't warrant any type of traffic signal today, but we did note that in our notes whenever we applied for the money, that as we look at the design portion of this, that would be an intersection that potentially would be a good one for an overhead flashing beacon.
It'd be an even better one for a roundabout.
Brent, what is the project here?
This is 2022, as the fiscal year 2022.
This is excellent, because in 2024, the final year of our renewed millage, this section of roadway is scheduled for seal coating. And I equate what is being contemplated here very similar to what we did on Clinton Road, and that worked very well. So
Yeah.
this will go a long way to extending the life of this important primary roadway.
Yeah.
Percent local match, does that come from the road commission?
It does. It's what we budget for these intersections whenever we, in that year that we construct them, we will budget for that 10% local match.
Yeah, and safety is actually a very generous program. Typically, our federal funds are 80-20, meaning that we have to put up 20% match. For the safety, we only have to put up 10% match. Plus, they're paying for part of our preliminary engineering. As Matt said, it's mostly our staff time on the design side of it. So the safety funds are pretty generous relative to other federal funds.
Thank you.
Any
One more
strings
thing while we're-
attached to this that we should know about in terms of widening the road?
Oh, tons of strings.
Yeah.
How
We
many
still have
trees
to-
do you want to take down, Barb?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
we-
still,
Mr. Chair, don't be putting words in my mouth.
we still have to follow the federal state process for designing the roadway. So, and going through local agency programs to program them, the funding. So there are still plenty of strings, but we're not proposing any type of surface improvement. So that's where we wouldn't need to widen any shoulders or anything.
Yeah, we should not have tree removal or very little impact on vegetation as part of this project.
Exactly. Before we leave that screen, intersection improvements happen to be, I think most people recognize, one of my pet things. McGregor Road may not warrant traffic control at this point, but it certainly will in the foreseeable future, as well as North Territorial and Dexter Pinckney, which works adequately at the moment, but it won't in 10 years. So I'd sure, while we're engineering, I'd sure like to take as long look ahead as it seems to be reasonable under the circumstances. If we look at the increase in traffic on Dexter Pinckney Road, it dovetails with the increased population in Putnam Township, over which we don't have any particularly involvement with Putnam Township that I'm aware of, but certainly they're building houses up there, and houses up there means traffic on Dexter Pinckney Road. People are convinced so far that Dexter, if you live in Putnam Township, your path to the University of Michigan lies down Dexter Pinckney Road as opposed to going out 36 to 23. So I'd like us to be, while we're looking at this road, let's gaze as far out as we possibly can. And we do that anyway, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that I really want to hear at the conclusion of the preliminary engineering that, our best guess is the vehicle count today is blank. It was blank 10 years ago, and we expect to see something about what it's going to look like in 10 more years. So it's like Pontiac Trail. It's the only way through there. So I'll shut up.
Duly noted. So I guess before I move on to the next, so this one was funded through the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So the safety funds are split up into, I guess, two different pots. And one is high-risk rural roads, which is the next segment of road that we were selecting. Dexter Pinckney was under just the normal safety dollars. So the next one is Pleasant Lake Road from Schneider to Parker. And this one was selected under the high-risk rural road funding. Again, it's similar to what we're going to do at Dexter Pinckney, but it's going to have some sign delineation along the horizontal curves, along the curves within Pleasant Lake, enhance the intersection signage, reflective sheeting, and select signposts along the corridor. Overhead flashing beacons at Schneider and Parker, and high friction surface on some of the select curves. Whenever we did the application, most of the crashes are happening within the curves of Pleasant Lake. And that's the reason we chose some of these improvements. We have estimated, or we were awarded approximately $655,000. And again, this is 90% federally funded, 10% local match. We did not receive any preliminary engineering for this segment.
Any rumble strips in this plan?
No, we did not apply for any rumbles. Not that it couldn't be considered. Certainly, we can consider that as we move along through design. We want to be conscious of the trucking and what have you, especially through these horizontal curves. But that's something that we could consider, and we did note that as we were applying for the funds.
Okay, I spoke to it previously, and I just want to re-emphasize it again. As the weather turns and we have fog and dusting snow, it's really difficult to keep track of where the road is. So if it's possible to incorporate that feature, I think it would be a worthwhile enhancement.
Yep, we'll as we get into design, we'll definitely have that down for consideration.
And why would that be an issue with trucks? You
just
mentioned
other than them tracking over top of it and becoming for the neighbors, it will definitely be a noise. It'll create noise, and sometimes the folks that live along there are could not be big fans of having those rumble strips continually hit. So it's something that we will look at, and we can communicate with those that we feel may be affected. And I don't disagree with you. I like rumble strips, and it's something that will be definitely considered.
well, didn't you also do mumbles?
We have done
That are a
mumbles,
little
yeah.
less noisy than rumbles?
Yeah, I do like the mumbles as far as the quiet, being a little bit quieter. What I don't like is whenever we do some type of improvement along our road, and a lot of times that's chip seal. Granted, Pleasant Lake Road probably wouldn't receive a chip seal, but I I think we've done that in certain cases. Those mumbles actually cut out the roadway. It's a continuous milling. It's not where you're doing, you're not milling every 18 inches. It actually takes out where it mills completely out and creates this sinusoidal milling. And so whenever we go back to do some type of improvement, it basically creates like a bathtub for our chip seal. Where
okay.
if we have a normal rumble, our chip seal actually still works well with it.
Okay.
Point out,
I didn't miss your
that-
answer. I'm sorry.
I'll point out that next year, the first year of the renewed millage, we're scheduled to mill and resurface this section of road from Schneider to Steinbach. So these improvements nicely complement that work.
I hope I didn't miss the answer. What's the high friction surface composed of?
It's a material that it's similar to when you see us rehabilitate a bridge deck, and it has like an aggregate that is kind of sealed over that bridge deck. It's similar to that, where it's a high friction type material that gets put in the curves that helps vehicles grip better, or has a higher friction through those curves to stay on the roadway.
It's like a non-skid surface.
Non-skid, yeah, there you go. That's a good way.
Yeah,
to put it.
think of it as almost a permanent chip seal. It has more aggregate exposure because you're trying to create more friction. So the most recent example we did it on was Ridge and Hack.
Right.
So that's an example if you want to take a look at. That's what we'd be looking at, select curves in this area.
Brent, it's Doug. The other thing that I'd like you to report back to us on, when you're northbound on Schneider and you get to Pleasant Lake, the sight lines to the east
Awful.
are pretty minimal because of the grade of the adjacent property there, which used to be Woodmeyer, and I think now it belongs to that gravel company, whatever gravel company bought that land. But there's a serious from the road elevation to what's right next, just outside of our right of way, is certainly 3 foot, if not 5 foot, increase in elevation, and greatly restricts how far you can see to the east.
Yep.
I'd like us to take a look at that and see if we could possibly make some kind of accommodation with the landowner and cut that land down a wee bit. So since that is the predominant traffic on that road is northbound Schneider to eastbound Pleasant Lake, it's quite it's a difficult corner, let's put it that way. The other 3 quadrants of that intersection are just fine. That one quadrant is problematic.
I concur, and thank you for bringing that up, Doug.
Yeah,
That's a scary intersection.
it certainly is. And it's highly agricultural. There's a couple of farmers that use Pleasant Lake and they should be using Pleasant Lake to move their equipment from one field to another, not least of which is the current township supervisor for that township.
For a few more days.
For a few more days, that's correct. Then he can go to Florida without having to come back up for township meetings. Anyway, moving along. Thank you, Brent.
Welcome. Thank you.
Brent, I'm sorry, I was muted, so I couldn't ask. I wanted to ask about the Dexter,
Oh, sure.
the Dexter Pickney Road. And I'm so familiar with this area. And and excuse me if I missed it, I know Doug had questioned, and I see that it is enhanced signage. Is that correct or not? Curved delineations, because these intersections, and I've worked these and coming into Dexter, and even 5 years ago, the one Dexter Picnic coming right into town gets quite backed up and is a little tricky, as is North Territorial and Dexter Pinckney roads. And I think Doug said it well, as we look to the future. This plan doesn't have any plans for those particular intersections quite yet.
No, the plan specifically calls for us to improve North Territorial and Dexter Pinckney.
Okay.
It doesn't preclude us from looking at, like I said, we've made notes of potentially an overhead flasher at McGregor. So it doesn't necessarily preclude us from looking at some other safety features, but we need to make sure those fit within what we applied for.
And I will say, Brent and his staff in traffic and safety do an excellent job of identifying what safety priorities the state has and kind of what they weight various treatments to apply for these funds. Obviously, we're competing statewide for these funds and bringing them into Washtenaw County. A lot of them are treatments that are trying to address issues that we're seeing as a result of crashes or issues that we're having on the roads. So although capacity certainly is something we want to address, oftentimes it's not something that is in the scope of work of our safety projects.
Okay.
So we can certainly look at what long-term are some goals to go after, or to potentially look to the future on, or continue to monitor certain intersections to see where they rank among all the intersections in the county, because we have lots of needs out there and we need to prioritize. So these safety funds are really specifically to address what's been identified in the application. And we talked about strings attached. Anything that we identify as things we're going to do, we have to do. So we can't say, well, you know, we like the box span, but really we like a roundabout better, and we're going to use funds to build a roundabout. No, that's not something we can do. That's not where these funds are generated. And you can see the amounts, although 660,000 sounds like a lot, really it doesn't go very far in infrastructure. So just my 2 cents on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to build on what Matt was saying. There's certain things that we can do. For example, if we put that flasher up at McGregor, if we think that a intersection widening, even let's say a center left turn pocket on Dexter Pinckney is anticipated in the future, we can try to set that up in a manner so that it could be converted to a traffic signal in the future relatively easily. So we can try to be forward thinking in some of the things that we do. But $660,000 is actually going to go really, really fast along here, especially if you've got any signal work involved. So we're going to have to pick and choose. We just want to make sure the decisions that we make with respect to the project are as forward thinking as possible. We don't want to undo things in just a couple of years either. But Brent and his staff are amazing. I mean, once again, you know, and in securing safety funds, these are statewide competitive grants. That's how this works. There's no guarantee. Washtenaw County doesn't get a certain percentage of the pot or anything like that. They have to compete each and every year, and they continue to bring home. I mean, this is $1.2 million for our county in the year 2022. And so they've got a great batting average here. We really do appreciate. There's a lot of effort that goes into putting these applications together, and they are highly successful. They are very strategic in how they set them up, and so we are very appreciative for the work that they do on that. So good job to Brent and his staff with that.
And if you're looking to see how successful they've been over the years, On our website, under roadwork and construction, there's a grants tab. You can check it out, and you can see the millions of dollars ultimately that have been brought as competitive grants for statewide into Washington County. And a lot has to do with our expertise in-house in Brent and his staff. So again, kudos to them on another well done job.
And I've just put in the chat the link to that page on our website. It took me a while to find it. Grants was not the first keyword that would have come to mind for me to find these awards and a description thereof, but they go on and on and on. It is just incredible the amount of dollars that our team secures that we otherwise just, we couldn't do this work.
Any
Thank
other
you.
question on the safety grants? So with that, Matt, do you want to continue in engineering?
Sure, I'll just report that today on Miller Road, they are replacing the bridge over the Honey Creek, and they have a crane on site lifting the precast box culvert pieces. We've got some drone footage I'm sure we'll share on the project updates, but that work is underway today, very exciting, and we're still targeting the bridge project completion for the end of this month. That's all I had. If you have any questions.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, you want to bring us up to date on operations?
I sent the commissioners an update on the operations department project list. Say we continue to make great progress. This fair weather is really making it possible for us to successfully complete the remaining work. What we did do is add about 12 or 14 crossroad culverts to the program. With the fair weather, we've got 3 grade alls out right now replacing those. Those are mostly modest in size, 12-inch diameter corrugated metal pipes by 40, 50 feet long under our roads. They're unregulated crossings, so that's a cost and expense that the road commission bears. The pipes are, in most cases, in excess of 40 years old. They're galvanized steel, rotted away. When we pull them out, literally, it's just ribs. The bottoms are usually gone. So time to replace and restore, and that'll serve us well in the spring when the water starts flowing. So the foremen are identifying those needs and making those job requests at this time. And we'll proceed with that as long as we're allowed until the ground freezes. Petersburg Road culvert, that's a large pipe, 84 inches by roughly 50 feet. Down in York Township, that's a local road project in partnership with York Township. The heavy equipment crew replaced that pipe yesterday and completed the backfilling and armoring of the ends and get the road reopened today. County millage project with the completion of the concrete box culvert on Pleasant Lake Road between Zeeb and Ann Arbor Saline and Lodi Township. We moved in rapidly with our contractor this weekend to mill the pavement. The first course of asphalt, the leveling course, began yesterday. They completed the eastbound lane between Zeeb and Ann Arbor Saline. The westbound lane will be completed today. And then the top course asphalt will go down tomorrow, shoulders on Thursday, and that project will be substantially complete, but for pavement markings, long line pavement markings, which will probably occur this week as well. Just coordination, collaboration with everyone. In addition, as reported last time, we completed our winter maintenance equipment preparations. I think we just had a couple of motor graders and a foreman's pickup to inspect this week. So that's good to go. We talked at length last meeting about staffing and some of the vacancies we have. I'm pleased to report that Nicole Peterson and Alicia Held in our HR section were able to schedule some interviews with prospective applicants. We had 2 productive interviews last Friday. They have to be virtual. They both have turned into a second interview and driving test. One was completed this morning, and that went very well. And the second is scheduled for tomorrow. And then we have a third interview scheduled, I believe, for tomorrow afternoon with another prospective driver. So we're hoping that those interviews bear fruit and result in offers and accepted offers. And we're able to bring folks onto our team to help address the shortages that we have in the workforce right now. So making progress. Thank you, Nicole and Alicia.
Where are those recruits coming from? I know Joanne had reached out to Michigan Works, right? Or suggested that Nicole and Alicia do that. Do we have any sense of where the energy's coming from?
We do. One was noting the sign, the physical sign that we have posted out front. So old school does work. Another found us on Indeed, and that's something online recruiting that Nicole and Alicia have been using for some time. And I apologize, I don't know yet where the third person learned of the opportunity. We asked that during the first interview, and that's always interesting.
And I know Alicia is tracking that. I don't know in these particular applicants, but Alicia is tracking that as people are submitting applications where they are hearing about us. Yeah. She has, actually Nicole's been the one who's been in contact with Michigan Works based on the connections since the last meeting. So we're certainly trying to take full advantage of that. In addition, there's additional Facebook pages that Alicia has been reaching out to different groups. I believe the truck driving school that's part of Jackson Community College. So we're really trying to reach out in a variety of different fronts. I'm just trying to get the message out there that we are hiring and looking for qualified applicants.
And it is a competition because a Oakland County recruitment posting came through on my Facebook feed not too long ago.
Well, and they got to bury it onto when they did their news on their winter preparedness, they also got a free plug with the, local news station that they're also hiring temporary drivers. So we were very jealous and outraged at some level on that one.
No poaching, leave us alone, right?
Yeah, no, they have not. It's the dang utility companies that are taking our employees right now.
Yeah, Gloria, come on.
Oh, trust me, my husband, retired DTE, got near full too.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Any other questions for Jim? All right, Dan, I know that you've got the MTF latest and greatest is on the last page of the board packet. If you'd like to bring us up to date in finance and IT.
Yep. So on the last page of the board packet, we have our September Michigan Transportation Funds, or we know what they are going to be. And they're up about 3% from September of 2019. So again, right where we want to be. And year to date, we're about 1% up. So definitely trending where we've budgeted. So we're glad to see that. And hopefully there's no surprises the last 3 months, but so far so good for that. A lot of my time has been spent getting the budget documents ready for our departmental meetings. And I met today with both engineering and operations. Really nice to be able to use all the technology at our disposal. We have team meetings so we can all meet safely remotely. I can show documents on the screen so we're all looking at the same information. And also this is still relatively new for me, but it's kind of neat that we can do this now. There are some documents that we can all get into at the same time. So as we're talking about it and say Matt suggests a change, I can go in and update the document, or he can, or Brent can. So just kind of neat to be able to utilize the technology that we have at our disposal. So we all have some homework assignments as far as the budget. This is our initial meeting, and I need to get everything to Carrie, I believe, by next Thursday. So we have a bit of time if we need to meet again. But so far, preliminarily, I think things are looking quite well for our budget for not only 2020 as well as 2021, and looking forward to going over that with the board in a few weeks. So I don't know if there's any questions for me. Thank you.
You're muted, Cheryl.
Before we sign off from the staff's perspective, I would just like to give a special thank you to Carrie. She is the one who, after the last board meeting, really gave some careful thought to how the board packets were put together. So hopefully you found some of the additional inserted pages, but really basically trying to clarify what belongs with what associated with the agenda. Hopefully you found that helpful. If there's other comments that you have, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will work with Carrie to make sure that we get those implemented. We want this to be a useful document to the 5 of you, as well as to the public, because obviously it's a very public-facing document as well. But Carrie really has put a lot of time and effort into that, so that is much appreciated. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to Chris. He supports us during each of these meetings, but he doesn't necessarily have to play, you know, the host as well. And so today with Emily being off, he stepped into both roles, and I think he's done an excellent job, and I'm very appreciative to all of his support and willingness to do so today. So thank you, Chris, for really helping us out today as well. So with that,
Absolutely.
I think staff is done. Oh, yes.
So I
just saying,
have-
thanks, Cheryl.
Oh, I have a couple of questions. So benefits went well, and staffing and hiring, I watched that report. I read that report. I had questions about, and maybe we can do this off board, how it is going with the meetings with Nicole and Michigan Works, because I know that that program offers quite a benefit for us. They offer training. They would pay the staff or who is training, the employee who is training the trainer, and help pay for the CDL class. And wondered how far in those discussions Nicole has gotten. And,
Yeah, I know that they have connected. As far as the level of detail, I'd be happy to talk about that separately and make sure that we include Nicole in that conversation as well.
Awesome. So that's it. That's really it. And the finance report, thank you, Dan. I so appreciate your work and your ability to break it down, you know, simply and easy. Used to be one of the things that I hated doing was reporting the finances to people and watch their eyes roll back in their heads.
Usually not too exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fuller votes yes as well. We are adjourned, and thank you all for the energy and effort